I'm back today with a new one of these. They're popular and fun to make, so fuck it, you can't stop me. I've made videos on these topics in the past. One was very amateur and one is what I consider to be the best video I've made. I'll link those in the description below. But for now, we have a new topic. Hunter x Hunter is a series that sounds interesting. I've barely watched any of it, but who really cares? I'm gonna keep watching it, but since I've grown a bit attached to it, I felt like making a video about it. Also, I'm trying to delay my season 3 video as much as possible because I can't get access to the full videos anymore, so yeah. Anyway, let's begin. Oh, but one more thing. I did all of Gon's squad and the Phantom Troop in this video, but there's some that Rippen and I didn't do because they're just not important enough to warrant finding a match for. Still, we wanted to make this enjoyable, so there's 15 matches here for you. Alright, now let's begin. Gon vs Deku. I've already mentioned this before in the MHA video, so this shouldn't be a surprise. Connections are two up-and-coming anime protagonists who sport innocent yet kind-at-heart personas and are willing to fight to protect the ones they love, always having green hair and clothes as their iconic look. They both have almost one-to-one fighting styles, with close-quarters combat being their bread and butter, and their most powerful attack is a supercharged punch. They also sport weaker yet still effective projectiles and have piercing weapons or abilities. Both of their motivations in their stories revolve around an important figure they look up to and are considered to be one of, if not the most powerful fighter in their respective verses, and both are willing to injure themselves to absurd degrees, and still continue to keep fighting despite being very broken. And it leads to them willing to sacrifice everything just to beat an opponent through sheer determination alone. Though it should be noted that while Deku did it to save an entire island, Gon did it for revenge. And they both got saved because their plot armor is stronger than the fucking Big Bang. And finally, both can access super forms that drastically increase their stats way above that of their base forms, so much so that the first enemy they went all out against within their new forms, they annihilated them in a one-sided fight. Dear Christ, my thumbs hurt writing that. And now I'm going to bed. Yep, don't blame me, I wrote this at 5 AM. See you when I wake up. Alright, I'm back. So let's continue this with what I like about it. It involves two characters I quite like. MHA is one of my favorite animes of all time, and I love the characters. Admittedly, I don't like Deku as much as some others like Kaminari, but I still think his character is pretty interesting. And while I've only started Hunter x Hunter, Gon is cool. I can't really say much else since I'm not too experienced with him yet, but I will soon. Probably. And I think that since their personalities are quite similar, the dialogue would be pretty great. It would give it a real All Might vs. Might guy vibe. Because that one was wholesome and badass and balanced it quite well. I hope they could be able to repeat that somehow. And I think the fight could be fluent as all hell. These two have a bucket full of potential, and I hope that could possibly be utilized if it happened. And last but not least, the death. The death could be two different things. It could be incredibly climactic, making the final showdown as tense as possible before the final blow. And pretty emotional after the other pays respect to the other fighter. I would genuinely love an ending like this. Also, I would find it funny if they got Anthony Del Rio for Deku if it happened, then you could say him and Justin Briner switched roles entirely. And one more note, the music could genuinely be incredible. TGM already made a track for this, commissioned by Rippen funnily enough, and it's so good. I would love something along those lines. Now, about the winning aspect. I would probably bet Deku. It's not totally unfair right now, but that's not fixing anything. It's just making us wait for the anticipated stomp that it'll probably be, since Deku just won't stop getting stronger. It's genuinely ridiculous. I know adult Gon could probably deal some legitimate damage to Deku, but it's unfortunately likely that Deku will end up one-shotting later in the future. That's why I personally like Deku vs Azura more. Alright, I have to shut up now. I wrote this for a good while, so I won't be surprised if it ends up longer than the fucking song that was playing in the background. Alright everyone, I have a quick little note here. I lost the scripts for all of Gon's squad except for this one, so yeah. That sucks. Along with other pushbacks with family stuff and a slight setback with a weird illness that made me too weak to move, I didn't upload anything in over a month. I will be uploading more now, but this note here has given me the chance to add more to this, which is what it deserves. Thank you to Rippen for this next part, because the only reason I'm adding it at all is because I love how invested he is in this matchup and he is such a great guy. Also, I'm quite a big fan of it now, it's genuinely interesting. Since he helped a lot and offered more for this segment, I'm breaking my personal rule and I'm making this over 5 minutes. Let's continue. I'm actually gonna keep going on the verdict and go really in depth here, so let us start. Good luck to my thumbs. So comparing stats. AP to me is fairly obvious. Deku's best feat is the double Detroit smash in Heroes Rising. It was done by both him and Bakugo and it came out to country. But since that's done by 2 people, the calc was split into 2. This was placed at small country. Meanwhile, Gon's best feat was in his adult form. He was considered a threat to Meruem, and even demolished his hand and Pitou in a fight. This should mean he should at least be comparable to Meruem, but let's slightly downscale since they aren't on the exact same level. Meruem survived the Rose Bomb, which he barely survived, and that had an energy output which came out to island level. Deku takes AP due to classic higher leveling. Now speed. They are both fairly equal. They can both reach MHS plus due to dodging attacks like Nine's lightning and Killua scaling, but they do have some risky highballs which can get them to relativistic. Deku can even sit comfortably if you believe the Rela Bakugo explosion calc, but I don't, so fuck off. Dura next, and Gon just scales to AP, so who cares? But Deku is different since it could be argued that it downscales. Every time he does a strong attack, including his double Detroit, he has broken his bones. But it's super hard to determine where to place it then. I can narrow it down this way. I don't think Adult Gon can kill him. And since Adult Gon has already been explained to be island, it means that my logical choice has to be large island. It's still a downscale, but I feel safe putting it here since it isn't a large gap. The reason I don't think it can kill is because his durability would need to be over 200 times less than his AP for Gon to kill him, and that just sounds fucking loony. Now my favorite part. The ability clash. I genuinely think the potential here is bigger than any other matchup I'll end up discussing, and that isn't a bad thing. This matchup is just that good. Rippen, the actual god of these animes, sent a lot of examples and I'll just spit them all out. Though, fair warning, the rest of this segment has manga spoilers, mostly for MHA, and I can't avoid them. So skip to here if you don't wanna hear it. Alright, you ready? Let's go. There's abilities like Deku's smokescreen that can be blocked by certain Nen spells, like the sense boosters Zetsu and Nen. And with the ability to sniff out Deku, he could very well land a sneak attack immediately. But, on the contrary, Deku's danger sense quirk could definitely mess up those plans in an instant, since it is virtually a sixth sense. And this next one I'm not quite sure I understand, but I'm writing this at 7 AM, so that might be it. Regardless, it's on screen now. Alright, got it. Good. Moving on to Hatsu, Gon's Nen coverage that is basically fear manipulation. It shocks them so much that it prevents them from moving and could attack the psyche. But that might not work since Deku has shown to break out of spells like that before. We saw it in the sports festival against Shinso. He used his hypnosis and Deku broke free with One for All. This means that Deku can actively disrupt or straight up negate the effects of Hatsu. You might say the psyche attack, but Deku has been completely protected from similar things by the power of One for All, both physically and mentally. Now, when it comes to intelligence, the main core of it doesn't factor in since it's equal. But the type of intellect they hold is different, since Deku uses intellect to be more analytical and Gon uses it to be more adaptive. For example, Deku could think the best idea could be to let Gon wear himself out and then go in for the attack, and Gon could figure that out and start playing defense. Something along those lines, at least. Now, experience and skill go to Gon since he got real formal training and has had way more time to perfect his fighting style. And even though Deku is clearly a good fighter, he hasn't really mastered any style of formal training. That is slightly made up by his versatility, which has more ways to give Deku the chance to outmaneuver or hinder Gon in ways that Gon simply cannot replicate. Same goes for combat speed, since Gon needs time to deal heavy hits while Deku can just floor the fucking pedal. And it's boosted by their supercharged forms that exceed the boundaries of their base forms in every way. And it gives them the stamina and endurance to keep on fighting, even if their own strength is literally tearing them apart. But despite this, Deku is the only one who has shown endurance to the point where he doesn't even care if his bones are completely shattered entirely. So to summarize everything quickly, Gon takes skill and experience, Deku takes strength, durability and versatility, and they both share intellect and speed. With this in mind, most hacks don't really matter since they just kinda cancel each other out. So I'm gonna go to the holy stat trinity. Deku takes 2.5 with Dura, strength and shared speed, while Gon takes 0.5, only taking the other half of speed. If this doesn't make it clear enough, then I think Deku wins. He's too versatile with his unique abilities and they can't be exploited by Gon. Deku is bulky enough that full force Gon can hurt him bad but not kill, and strength is just obvious since country beats island. I think I might say this now. I think this is the best Deku matchup. I'm so glad I saved it for this cause I don't think I would have done it justice in the MHA video, and I'm glad that I managed to put in the effort here. Now don't even think the rest of the segments are nearly as long as this cause they're not. Killua vs Luck Voltia. Both the young at heart electricity users are inept at fighting either to near death in Luck's case or straight to the death in Killua's case. Both have had tough histories with abusive mothers and both passed specific exams that allowed them to be labeled as one of their verse's most powerful warriors. They're also both seen as the troublemakers among the particular groups of friends. They also contrast in while Luck is constantly itching to fight opponent more powerful than him, Killua actively avoids fights in that situation. Honestly, I kinda love this matchup. It's definitely not the most thematic and matches like Gon vs Deku provide a ton more potential, but that doesn't matter to me since I think matchups should be held to their own merits before comparing them to others. For example, here's a Steve Fox matchup tier list I made. I would place the matchup of Steve vs Dudley in good alts since it's quite thematic and has some banter potential. But Johnny vs Steve is in the one simply because it does both those categories better and can add on more. But Dudley was also in good alts simply because I compared it to its own merits, and not to the ones of Johnny vs Steve. I don't compare matches like that at first. Sure, this tier list is comparing every match and placing them in an order, but I looked at their own merits first before positioning them. Also, I know it's low, but Steve vs Zeus would be in the one if I was basing it off on Discord lore. Credit Jolly for that. Anyway, back to this. It's honestly really cool in concept. I love how they contrast and could play off each other in an actual fight. They could begin less serious, and slightly goofy. Then as the fight progresses, they get further and further into the fight before they are dead serious, fighting to the actual death. I think that'd be awesome. And while Gon vs Deku could have dialogue that is straight up wholesome and badass, I prefer the way these two could bounce, since it would be more funny and possibly even more serious. And their electrical abilities could provide chances in an animation for some really cool conveyances of speed. And the effects could be very pretty. I could go on and on but I don't want to push out this segment any longer, since I was already pushing it with the Gon vs Deku one. Alright, next. Kurapika vs Scorpion. Before I speak, remember the FMA video. I'm not doing repeats, so that matchup is not getting featured, as much as I like it. Yeah, I'm not even mentioning it. Go check out the FMA video for that. Connections are two chain-wielding characters with a desire to avenge their loved ones, even if the outcome happens to be brutalizing their opponent and taking their life. And that's it. Yeah, I am not too much of a fan of this but it works enough. I would say it's fair but Scorpion is apparently country at max sir, yeah. You know, the only thing about this entire matchup that stands out to me is that their chains could have some fun bits of choreography if done right. Yeah, that's it really. Kurapika is getting flat out obliterated unless he can land the judgment chain, but Scorpion is so much more faster that it's sad. Not much else to say, which sucks since Kurapika is easily my favorite of the four. Oh well, moving on I guess. Leorio vs Kuabara. We haven't escaped the stomps, oh dear. At least it's thematic. Both are quite powerful in their verse, just weaker than the other main three in their series. And despite being weaker when it comes to Nen or spirit energy, they are the most physically capable of their respective groups. They both invoke comic demeanors that make them the most entertaining and relatable members in the groups, and when times get tough, they tend to overreact in a very over-the-top way. Finally, they both have relatable goals of achieving world jobs, scientist for Kuabara and doctor for Leorio. This is very based if I do say so myself. Rippen and I were expecting it to take a godly amount of time to find a solid enough opponent, but it took a couple minutes and we found a really good one out of the blue, with no notable problems at all. Too bad Kuabara had to be fucking continental. Yeah, that's what sort of brings this down a bit. It's not that debatable, which is such a massive shame. At least I can see their abilities bouncing pretty well. I would love it if Kuabara just charged him with a spirit sword, and a scene where Leorio is dodging them in a cartoony way, that would be kinda funny. And I would love the inclusion of a physical clash, with both of them hitting each other with full force and causing a literal explosion or a large tremor. Plus, the death would have to be as over the top as possible. Maybe they could fall off a cliff together and still be brawling whilst they're dropping to the death, then a sort of Haga versus Sanjeev moment where they try to make the other take the impact so they remain safe while killing the opponent. I would find that cool. At least this stomp is much better than the last one, since it had good connections and actual potential. Alright, now it's on to the Phantom Troop. Since the Phantom Troop is next, it's only fitting that Hisoka starts us off. Honestly, Rippen and I both thought the Hisoka hunt would be miserable. It was not. Rippen found one relatively easy, which has convinced me that he is supernatural. The matchup is Hisoka versus Shusukiyama. The connections are tall, skinny, easily stimulated gay men who are obsessed over the main character, Ken for Shu and Gon for Hisoka. Whereas Hisoka is obsessed with Gon over his power, Shu is obsessed with a desire to eat Ken. They also have a stupid high pain tolerance and lose body parts without the slightest care. I think this is really interesting in connections and fairness, and has some decent arguments behind it. Shu takes AP since city beats large town and their speed is even. But Hisoka and his Nen can deal some pretty heavy hits and knock Shu down. And I'm not sure Dura truly matters since these two aren't too destructive despite where their AP stands. I think this needs more attention and I'm glad Rippen found it cause it is hella interesting. I probably like it more than Eren vs Ken, but I kind of have a weird bored nature when it comes to AOT. I don't control it, I just don't give a fuck about any of the matches. Before I move on, just gonna point out the voice actors cause they're both fucking based. God, I'm just gonna see shit like Ida vs Vector in my head now, god damn it. Chrollo vs Toyohiro Suzuki. Two leaders of criminal organizations who are well known for the constant clothing choice of business attire. Both have been betrayed at one point and rendered powerless by the people they hated the most, and both have powers that involve draining energy from their targets to gain more abilities and power. I quite like this matchup a good bit. It's interesting enough and sticks with me when people ask me about HXH. But it's not something I'll be looking forward to if it ever happens. I was gonna choose All for One instead, but I wanted some variety since I do have a repeat later, plus this list has some MHA, and All for One has better. Anyway, back to this. I'm not too sure on most of the stats, but I have gained a vague understanding. Chrollo has better regeneration and durability, they share speed at MHS, and Toyohiro has a P. I don't really know all the powers Toyohiro has, but I'm gonna say he wins since the guy is fucking psychic. Nothing else to say really. Meruem vs Cars. This should be fun. Hopefully. Probably. Not really. Of course not. Hopefully. Connections are two biological life forms that are easily the most powerful of their species, chimera ants for Meruem and pillar men for Cars, and they both share the same ultimate goal of ruling the world and every species within it. Also, it's technically animal versus insect. The connections are simple, but I think they work. Also, I might be missing one or two. Oh well, who knows. I know how controversial this matchup can be, and I don't want to step my foot in the ring cause I don't care as much. But I will simply for your enjoyment of the video. I will start off by saying that I think this is close.
Woo! It can't get much worse than that.
I will end up getting the verdict right and wrong here since all of this is subjective. So bear with me and be civil about your response if I fuck it up. Personally, I think that Meruem wins. He's got better durability and strength. His fear manipulation can definitely screw over Cars since I don't think Cars can resist it. And while Cars is massively faster than Light, that's only in reaction timing. And it's not like his MCB strength feats can hurt Meruem's island level Dura feats. Also, while Cars does have plenty of hacks to fuck up other people, it doesn't work on Meruem's physiology. So I personally think Meruem wins because of the info put in front of me. Who knows though, Jojo might get buffed and it might change. Dear God, I don't want that. It would destroy my enjoyment of Josuke vs Ed and I don't want that. Wow, that was very brief despite me saying I think it's close. Huh, whatever. Next. Bissuit Kruger vs Liname. Two secondary heroines from two different franchises, who are much older and powerful than they seem. They also act as a mentor-like figure towards the main protagonist in their respective series. I'm not sure on the verdict, but I would go with Bissuit. Lin and Bissuit are around town, but Bissuit can be buffed to large town. Plus, I don't think Lin has anything or enough AP to take out Bissuit. This isn't particularly the most interesting matchup, but Under Night deserves the mention, I guess. Uvogin vs Arouge. Connections are two meatheads with respected status in their own individual groups. Both channel their versus power system to greatly enhance their physical abilities and overall body, with Nen for Uvogin and Devil Fruits for Arouge. And they don't gain unordinary powers like other Nen users because of this. They are also main antagonists to the heroes, but while Uvogin died against Kurapika in a genuinely awesome fight, Arouge barely survived his encounter with the Strawats. This matchup is pretty base, but I'm pretty sure Uvogin only caps at town while Arouge is a one-piece character, so who cares cause he will blitz. I still think this is pretty interesting nonetheless. I just wish, like Leorio vs Kuabara, that it wasn't so predictable. And I'm not gonna speak of the potential cause it's really similar to the match I just mentioned. I'll just move on. Next up is Feitan, and I chose Feitan vs Speedo Sound Sonic. Connections are black-haired and clothed humans who are seen as the most agile in their verse, purposefully made out to be blitzing fast. Despite their verse's crazy amount of foes and monsters with absurd abilities and powers, they still try and combat their foes with swords. However, whereas Speedo Sound Sonic thrives on getting stronger and fights because he's a thrill seeker, Feitan sees fights as nothing more than a job and refuses to go serious unless it's absolutely necessary. I like this matchup a lot. It's better than other matches for Sonic like Raiden from MGR. And unlike the last one, this isn't stripped of things to talk about. Speed is such an important factor here, and I'm pretty sure both get relativistic levels of speed. Which I'm kinda glad to learn since I don't like speedster fights wherein one of them blitzes. I'm not sure AP is massive in this since they can kill with one sword swing, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Feitan can scale to large town and I think Sonic is the same, though that might be wrong. And durability. I have absolutely no clue. I'll be real here, only speed matters in the stat trinity, so I'll just start talking about this. I think Feitan would take it for one reason. His swords are straight up more tough. Speedo Sound Sonic's swords have shattered multiple times against opponents while Feitan has sliced through people who can use Nen to protect themselves. It's mostly equal in every other category, except skill and experience, which also are in Feitan's favor. Despite me thinking this, I hope you can agree that there is some great possibilities for this if it happened. The animation could be incredibly quick and very much so have interesting moments. You could have a moment where they keep bouncing back and forth, attacking each other while doing so. You could have them just muscle it out and see who can overpower the other in a sword clash. You could have a brutal death where the moment pauses before revealing the other has been fatally wounded. There is plenty more I could go into because the potential is so alive. And it could have a banging track too. The two OPM appearances on Death Battle have had some solid tracks, even if I can't remember KO Computer all of the time. I would hope it could follow that and keep up the OPM trend since they have some great tracks in their OST. I really do like this matchup, more than I expected. And it's making me more glad I decided to do this. Alright, so here's the repeat. I'm doing Netero next and the matchup I have chosen is Netero vs Bang. Connections are two old fighters who were seen as the greatest warriors in the young age. They both tirelessly studied the ways of martial arts, and are both so skilled in fighting that their fighting style involves memorizing muscle movements to catch opponents off guard and fight with near-perfect accurate movements. Both have techniques which can repel and counter many head-on attacks. The names of Bang's technique is Fine, Rock Smash Water Stream Fist, but TTS will crumble into dust if I say Netero's, so I'm gonna put it on screen now. Read it. Good. Last connection is both also have proficient body control techniques to medicate injury or internal harm. I don't have much to say on this since it's a repeat, and I don't have anything unique to say other than the clashing of abilities would be cool to watch. Next. Morel vs. Smoker. Connections are two strong bulky businessmen who, despite their stern exterior, fight for the side of good and generally are really kind and caring individuals, whilst being very powerful. They utilize their versus power source, Nen and Devil Fruits, to weaponize the smoke from their bong or cigar respectively. Utilizing their smoke in different ways, Morel using it for distraction, duplication and diversion. Whereas Smoker uses his smoke to increase his physical stats, make himself invisible, and even intangible. I'll be blunt here since I don't know these characters well enough to keep this going long. I think Morel isn't getting stomped, but he does lose. He's slower than Smoker, since One Piece maxes out at FTL, he's got weaker AP, since Smoker is a tier or two above him. And he's not got enough abilities in him to really keep a prolonged fight. Plus, with stuff like intangibility and invisibility, it makes it hard for Morel to pinpoint and land a solid hit. Plus, his Nen doesn't literally boost his stats. So yeah, I think this is pretty open and shut. Next. Neferpitou vs. Taukaku. Connections are two female cat combatants who share the power to control he bodies in unnaturally weird ways, as well as summoning completely new beings to aid in healing and statistic amplification. That's it. Yeah, this isn't too deep at all, but it's sadly Pitou's best matchup. It's only one of two matchups on this list that I don't care about at all, with the other being Kurapika vs. Scorpion. The best I can say is Taukaku is more versatile and they're very similar in everything else, so she wins. Oh well, at least it gave BlazBlue some representation. Alright, we're at the home stretch here with the final matchup. We're ending it off with a matchup for Genthru. And the matchup is Genthru vs. Kira. Connections are two seemingly normal and unremarkable fellows that didn't draw much attention to the main cast. However, behind the scenes they are traitorous and maniacal murderers who aren't willing to show any mercy. Both's main ability is to explode any object or person they dare to touch, making anyone or anything explode in a bloody fashion. So basically murderers that go boom boom. Wait. Boom boom. Fine. Screw it. Play the song as we talk about some murderers. I think this matchup is pretty cool, but it's not the best for Kira. I don't think it's unpopular to say Itachi vs. Kira is better since probably everyone will think that, but they can fuck off because I'm talking Hunter x Hunter here. The potential here kinda makes me shiver. They are maniacal and merciless, they will not hesitate. And I think that would make the fight so enjoyable. The constant destruction they cause just by fighting could wreak so much havoc, and I would love that to no end. The death would have to be brutal, an obvious explosion death. But they could be creative with it. If Kira won, you could have him pinned down against the ground, and taunting Genthru to finish him up close and personal. The taunting could affect Genthru and he could actually do it, letting Kira get in that one hit that completely destroys Genthru. The blood rains down as Kira laughs maniacally and it fades away. And if Genthru won, you could do that, but he would blow up Kira's arms first. He walks up, taunts him, and annihilates him, leaving nothing but blood showering down as he walks away from the carnage he has caused. That would be dope as hell. I would not complain if this happened, though I will admit that I do still prefer Itachi vs. Kira. Illumi vs. Itachi. Connections are asshole brothers who mentally scarred their brothers for what they believe to be the greater good. They also are assassins, part of a large group, the Phantom Troop and Akatsuki respectively. And despite the mental trauma they caused to Killua and Sasuke respectively, they still care deeply for them and want the best for their little brothers, even though they have a shitty way of showing it. Now, I don't think this matchup is bad. I would say it's pretty solid. Connections are good, potential is solid, track potential is incredible, and it could have a good sense of scale. Too bad Itachi stomps in a complete wash. All the stats except experience goes to Itachi, and the stat trinity is just an abysmally large gap. I don't care what kind of ability might counter one of Itachi's cause it really doesn't matter. I wish it didn't end like this, but I've already finished a lot of the video, so here we are. At least it's better than Kurapika vs Scorpion. And I'm finally done. It took me a bonkers amount of time, but I've done it. I promise I won't have a gap this big again. I already explained in the Gon vs Deku segment why I didn't upload, so I hope if you were anticipating a vid that you weren't waiting too long. I do have another video in the works, themed around a spin-off of Death Battle. So you can wait for that. Also, thanks to Fib and Omega for all the TNs, and big thanks to Rippen who helped tremendously with all of these matchups. It was way more fun than I thought it'd be. And that's all. Tell me what your favorite matchup and segments were in the comments. I hope you enjoyed, and for the love of God, don't ever do Kurapika vs Scorpion. Scarapika for the win. Anyway, I'll see you whenever I upload next.